Hello, freshman honors biology. I hope all is well. In my previous video, I showed the graphical analysis of exponential growth and how it can have profound effects on populations, whether it be Asian carp in the Mississippi River, whether it be a bacterial infection where you start off with just a small number of these harmful microbes entering your body, but then they grow at an exponential rate, eventually making you sicker and sicker. Viruses reproduce exponentially. Infections can be passed from one person to another in exponential fashion unless we try to curtail that. In front of you is a graph of the number of deaths over a period of time here from September all the way through to December during a Spanish flu epidemic that happened in the 1917 or 1918. Maybe it might have spanned through both those years, I'm not quite sure. Anyway, notice the blue line here, and notice this is Philadelphia, and take a look how it mimics that exponential growth that we've talked about. As always, when you're analyzing data, make sure you go over and take a look at the y-axis and what we're measuring, and we're comparing the y-axis versus the change in the x-axis here. So it looks like we have the death rate by 100,000, and that is the death rate by 100,000 that's occurring over the course of several weeks here. Well, again, notice how the death rate mimics the exponential curve here in Philadelphia. Notice St. Louis. Notice St. Louis has quite a few less deaths compared to Philadelphia during this terrible epidemic. In fact, if you start looking at the numbers, we can compare the height of the death rate here in Philadelphia, and we could go down and figure out the time here. And then notice that we can go over, it was over 250 deaths per 100,000 at its peak. Whereas St. Louis had a peak here, which is interesting. Not quite sure why that peak occurred, but notice it's a little bit less than 50 deaths, even at the St. Louis peak, compared to the peak here, which is over 250. Well, what was going on here? What happened was there was a large parade in Philadelphia. And that large parade was early on at this time frame. That large parade eventually resulted in a massive influx of people going to the hospital. Now, these are the people that died, but the people that got sick, had symptoms, went to the hospital, took hospital space was quite a bit more than that, significantly more than this peak. Well, St. Louis officials, to their credit, realized this was a potential problem. So here they are over here, and I think it was the mayor of St. Louis, one of the city officials, realized that this could be a potential problem for St. Louis. So what they did was they did something similar to what's going on now. They put a strict limit on gatherings, and look at the effect. This idea of increasing social distance between people, whether it's eliminating crowds going to sports, parades, gatherings at the theater, whatever, notice the effect that this social distancing had on this particular time frame for this particular flu outbreak. This, my friends, is what we're trying to do as a country. This is what's going on. We're trying to mimic this, this in terms of infection rate and in terms of deaths. Now, it's not just people dying here. We're talking about, maybe you've heard this term, flattening the curve. So here we go. Let's go with our exponential. We are trying to flatten the curve. And let me try this here. So we've got this exponential. Let me do this. We got this exponential increase here. We're at the exponential phase, and the idea is to flatten the curve by this social distancing, hopefully bringing that down to obtainable levels or to manageable levels. Again, we're not just talking, so there's the idea of flattening the curve from this growth here. We're not just talking about the death rate, we're talking about the infection rate, and we're talking about not overloading our healthcare system with severe numbers of infected people. And again, it's not just the death. Take this rate and then you got to increase it significantly. And you're talking about the number of infected people. And the seriously infected people, even though they didn't die, they're going to the hospital. They're using vital equipment that other people won't have access to. So by flattening the curve here, what we're trying to do is save lives, of course. That's obviously important. But what we really want to do is not overload our healthcare system and get a situation that's completely unmanageable. That is the idea as to what we're doing right now across this country of ours. All right. The next lecture, we're going deep into viruses. They can go deep into us. We're going to study them deeply, and bacteria. We want to figure out how they infect us. What's their mechanism? How do they reproduce? What do they do to cells? Same thing with bacteria, the good bacteria, the bad bacteria. For that matter, bacteria can get a bad rap because certainly certain bacteria cause infection, cause disease, all different sorts of diseases. But many bacteria are actually friendly, and they actually help either living creatures like us. We have bacteria in our gut, which does some important sort of helper things in our gut. But also out there in the world, in different ecosystems, bacteria are essential for maintaining ecosystems and helping out with providing nitrogen for the soil, which can be passed off to plants and act as fertilizer for growth. So anyway, I'm excited. We're really going to get moving in this class. We are going to get moving. All right. So I'm looking forward to helping us develop intellectually. And I need detailed notes, people. Detailed notes. Take this down, yes, yes, yes. But what I'm talking about is important. It doesn't have to be on the overhead. You need to pause that button. And you need to take detailed notes. Really, really important. Really important. So if I review, I want you jotting that review down. The idea is we're not going to spend as much time together. So you have to use my little reviews as a way to, you write that down because you're going to remember what you write. And then you also are responsible for when we start doing PowerPoints, obviously, and that sort of thing, which are coming up soon. All right. You guys, have a good rest of the day. Bye.